It is November 3rd, 2021, and yesterday I stopped by Lewis's apartment to speak to him, and he mentioned to me something about, I wanted to go out for my walk, and he was like, no, come here, come talk to me real quick, and I'm like, yeah, what's up? And so he said to me that a while back he had hired Air Force, I don't know if he said U.S. or not, but he said an Air Force captain to teach him the stock market. And I'm like, wait, you did what? I was like, when? So he said it was back in 2000, I think he said a few years ago, like maybe 2018. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I was like, yeah, so? So he's like, well, no, he mentioned something about a market maker, which never really made sense to me. Then he said something about straddling the market, which I get the construct, kind of, sort of, in a not really kind of a way, like abstract way, of going long. You sell the stock, you buy the thing, you premium, and then it's legitimate something or other. But it was more what really struck me about the conversation about what my father was saying was he was talking about this one subject which I had no interest in whatsoever, because I think it's all a bunch of bullshit and malarkey in this crackpot situation I'm stuck in. But what was more important was the fact that he mentioned that the person that he had paid for this service had told him to stay steady and repeat the same task over and over and over again, and then he would see results. But my father was unable to keep this one cognitive strategy. He was deterring himself, and he was struggling. So for me, knowing it's an Air Force captain and knowing they're usually like very precise by instrumentation, and knowing my father who's not precise, and he is a form of an instrument, he's just, let's call him a collateral instrument if we have to call him an instrument at all. And so my father as a collateral instrument malfunctions. And this Air Force captain happened to get to know my father in his malfunction in a respectable way by tracking my father's ability to follow direction, which my father had a very hard time doing. He follows so long, and then he has a better, brighter idea, and then he's off to something else, and then it's upset because that didn't work out, and then it's like this jerky motion, like I don't know, whatever. So that's one. Two is Lou likes to watch this thing called CNBC, and I noticed FMA, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. And then all of a sudden he's watching these charts, and not this. He's watching these charts, and it has the symbology on it. And now that says FMAM. So that's the FM radio, the AM radio, and then it's got a J, and then it's got a Jason. For long-term, short-term wave antenna radios, and who set this directorship up to fail in dark matter before I was impregnated by something called a Jason in some great grape rape, where I'm carrying a child that is not a child to my fettered, where I was taken from, but to some strings pulled for some other disgusting reason. These are just facts in the real life trauma ward. WARD, since I'm just speaking raw, and it didn't come from war intelligence. It came from just me surveying the area. Now, I'm sitting on a second marriage certificate now to something called an Anthony Tiafrio, born 1975, so it gets confusing, but he's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They made a really disgusting movie I never watched, but they reference it all the time about this whatever human and his affection as a male to dress up as a female in cabaret, full makeup. It's like being in the dressing room. The whole movie is what it looks like, based on the clips that they choose on television to let out. It's not I'm not a cabaret burlesque. That's not my cup of tea. I'm a private woman. I don't like my face put in other people's prideful events and their dressing rooms. I like to stay fully clothed myself, and I like to be working on getting myself back up the chain to the fettered man that I was built for originally in Cosmic Nursery before this disgusting storyline happened. The glass vortex cracked and my stomach split open and it had somebody else's kid in it. Because it's really what this insomnia feels like. In dark matters that we don't normally speak of. Because there's many different pieces that are going on that not all of the humans are aware of, and some humans can't be made aware of, and I don't know any of that backstory. What I will say is the man who's the second marriage certificate, 1975 is what I call him. He is tonight at the table. I don't normally speak to him. But tonight he has a totally different room, totally different life. We don't really spend or share anything together. There's no house that's being built, and he needs to work his craft of impressing me with some kind of product or teaching me electrical or something. So his part is over as far as I'm concerned. So we'll reference him as the Rocky Horror Picture Show, like stand-in, because my fettered would not appreciate the lifestyle that Anthony brought into with the strings attached into my real real area. For the same point, he would not appreciate my fettered on chain, would not appreciate Romer, 1976, with the strings pulled out of whack to get that result either. Neither one better than the next. It's just one has a Harry Potter scar, and then there's a movie about Harry Potter, but that whole storyline gets confusing. And then the second looks and in private is like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it's a disgusting arrangement I would never want to be part of. I just wouldn't. But it just arrived and then wouldn't leave, like toilet paper on the bottom of your shoe. It's more difficult to get off than toilet paper on the bottom of your shoe, unless it's a ballerina slipper and it's some kind of disgusting bodily juice on the floor that you already stepped in. How do you get it out? It's more along those lines. When you have no laundering skills. So now, here we are at Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I said to him tonight, he's like, what happened to your face? Because Lou said something about, stop picking your face, or your face is so ugly to look at, something along those lines. He's a real stand-up fucking American. So anyway, then I said to Tia Frio. I was like, well, Tia Frio. I was like, it's more of like a chemical burn is what it is. He goes, where would you get chemically burned? I was like, well, you do know that I had an incident with FDNY. They did come out. They did test with machinery the smell. I was like, because there's a smell coming out of the sewer grate. And he goes, yeah, so. And I was like, so it smelled like sulfur dioxide. I was like, and I have a chemical burn. And he goes, no, it's not. He's like, get out of here. If it was that, like, you would know, like, and I was like, okay, FDNY came out with their machine beeped, which means there's something coming out of there. There's other pedestrians I've witnessed who also smell it coming out of there. There's a building across the street that says telephone building and fallout shelter. So something was going on here. I was like, I've gone up and down the avenue. I've looked at all of the street metal and I've looked at all the sidewalk metal. I've now totally mapped out this main street section by just what is left in the street. I was like, and there's sewers that say made in India, or it says India on it. Not USA, it says India. So he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, he's like, are you sure? And I was like, well, the letters spell and make the sound. Could be India. I'm not really sure because it doesn't have like a map on it. It just has some letters as a symbol. But it certainly doesn't say USA. And he was like, and I was like, second to that, I was like, he's like, well, but the sewers are like for like raw sewage. And I'm like cesspool stuff. And I'm like, no, Tifrio. I was like, actually, on the New York City streets, I was like, in this fallout shelter zone, I was like, there's underground wires that are in cable wires inside big cable whatever, because I've seen them when they cut up the streets. I was like, I've noticed it because I'm watching. I was like, and then secondly, where the sewer grate system is with this venting of this noxious gas, I was like, it just so happens to be a single and separate system from the New York City sewers that they charge for with the water company. I was like, it is totally separate. It is like some flowing, sounds like water, but I can't verify what it is, and it smells like sulfur dioxide. I was like, and then it vents up through into the air that everybody's breathing. And so he was like, so what are you trying to say? And I'm like, I'm trying to say I got a chemical burn. It smells like sulfur dioxide. It's not so far of a stretch to you for you. It says fallout shelter on one of the buildings for some past event that happened here that the city was built on. And he was just like, and I was like, and then he said something about he's got incontinence now to Linda. And so I was like, well, sarin gas exposure, which is like nerve gas. I've been doing the research. I did like a little research on it. It does say that that's one of the side effects. And he goes, sarin gas? He goes, where would that come from? And I was like, well, that is what is associated with the sulfur dioxide smell. I mean, FDNY was there. They said it wasn't explosives, but it was some kind of vented whatever. And other people smelt it. It's one of these invisible gases that you're exposed to because of whatever's going on or whatever went on before we arrived. So he's just like, but he's at the table, like, totally making fun of me. Like, there's not a chance on earth I could possibly be correct, because that's what his fucking head case tells him, and disconnected from an actual reality that exists. Like, we'll look stuff up online, will behave like the actor in Rocky Horror Picture Show in his early days, and doesn't believe that there's a possibility that he's like, but the city would never. I was like, the city would never what? Right. I was like, so FDNY said they were going to call DEP because they have the authority there. I was like, I've kind of become like an expert walking the street for the time I've been here, Tia Frio. I've been observing a lot of stuff that when I put the puzzle pieces together, it's telling a very real story that I have never heard before come out of my parents, and I have not heard any of the news source speak on. I was like, but it's a really scary thought that this is where we're at, especially while I was like, there's other stuff environmentally going on. This just happens to be a man made quickening, let's call it, of like dirtying my genetics and breaking my genetic down, my collateral instrument down. So this way, then they can play doctor and they can play pharmacy and they can really be creepy, disgusting humans. It's just what I arrived to in the 19th to 20th century. So Tiafra was like, wow. He's like, actually, he said it was something else, but I'm like, it's the same shit. Just different way of explaining it. Star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. I don't know why it says the letters INDIA in the symbol in alphabet calligraphy. I don't know if it has to do with an outside countryman or outside statesman flag that is not this. I have no idea. There's no way for me to research this. There's no way for me to know this. There's no law group. I mean, there's shadow law groups, but they only like deal with themselves. I don't really see them interacting or making an effort, especially in my lagoon being 11361. I don't see any like community involvement with myself and inviting me in to teach me what I need to know to be safe or to help out in whatever bigger issue might be going on citywide. There's like none of that.